Good afternoon, folks. How are you doing today?
Good job.
Welcome back to Culinary Technique. Today is week 3, day 2. We're going to be going over how to incorporate a roux into a sauce properly so we don't get any lumps and things of that nature. How we can develop some flavor with the different roux. And then at the end, we're just going to kind of look at it and troubleshoot with a couple different examples of roux and such. So to start off, what do we use roux for? Thickening. What do we thicken? Sauces, soups, what else? Sauces, soups, chowders, chilies. I mean, sauces is a big, grand category, but down we can do a few other things too. But it's one of those good skills that you should have as a culinarian, because a little bit of roux can help your sauce out a lot in terms of performance, functionality, and also flavor. What are the components to a sauce? Like if you're going to make a good quality sauce, what are the 4 things that you need to have? 4 things. 4 things to make a sauce.
Fat.
We're going to need our, almost, fat's in the roux, but our stock, our flavorful liquid,
flour,
our thickening agent, okay? We're also going to need some flavorings and seasonings in there. Flavorings and seasonings, that's the 4. Seasoning at the end, salt and pepper. Always want to make sure we're seasoning with salt and pepper because nothing's ever done. So those 4 things. So what we're going to spend a little bit of time on is the roux part of making a sauce. Because different sauces call for different thickening agents. We can use roux, we can use slurries, we can use liaisons, which are eggs, things of that nature. We can also use purees. Different ways to thicken things, but today we're just going to focus on a roux. So with a roux, what we're going to do is take equal amounts, doesn't matter what you're doing, equal amounts by weight of fat and flour. Okay? It's very important that we use fat and flour because the fat is going to suspend the flour in the fat molecules and help to bind and emulsify the sauce as it heats up. You can do a cold roux, which is called a beurre manier, which is just flour and butter, and we can mix this together and make a little roux ball. That is for mostly finishing. If you just need a little roux right at the end, you can do that. What we're going to do today is actually take it and cook it because we want it to be stable and we want to develop some flavor. So up here I have 3 different roux that I already cooked. But this is basically just a plain, straight, blonde roux, we call it. Put it in the pan, melted, and cooked for about 2 or 3 minutes. Not looking for any color change, we're just looking to kind of get the starches to set up in there. This one, we cook for about 5 to 6 minutes. We get a little bit more color back into it here. And this one over here is one that we would use for, how many people have seen a brown roux before?
Gravy.
Gravy, you can use brown roux for gravy. What else is the most? Gumbo for sure. It's classically used in gumbo. This takes about 10 to 15 minutes to make. You're actually browning the flour in there, if you will, roasting it. It gets a very aromatic, nutty flavor to it. But it's a flavor component, so if you need something in your sauce, instead of doing a blonde roux, pick it up a notch and cook it and do a brown roux.
Is it true, Chef, that the darker the roux is, the less potential it has to thicken?
Somewhat. It kind of depends, I think. It really depends on the ratio of that roux to make sure you have the even amount of flour and fat in there so it properly suspends. But also, a lot of times brown roux are made with oil. Okay, and you can do oil and flour, and that is where this one was made with a little bit of oil because I wanted to get the color in there. But it'll start to separate a little bit and not be as stable, if you will. But if you use butter, good old butter fat, that butter fat helps out a lot, and it should be pretty stable, and it shouldn't break down over time. If it does happen to do that, it's probably a little loose and wrong, and you want to make sure it's just a little bit thicker, you get a little bit more flour in there. And I'll show you what we're looking for here. So, first things first, we want to take our butter. I'm going to do 2 different ones here at the same time so you can kind of see the different things that happen. One with chicken stock and one with just plain water. Okay, both the same viscosity, but I'm going to make them a little bit different. The one with the water, I'm going to beat up. I'm not really going to pay much attention to it. I'm going to break some rules. The one with chicken stock, I'm going to follow the process the way it's supposed to be done so you see a nice, smooth, evenly thickened sauce at the end, okay? So first what we're going to do is melt our butter. So over medium-high heat, get our pots going. I have 3 ounces of butter here. By weight. I'm going to have 3 ounces each of flour here by weight. That equals 6 total ounces. Anyone want to guess how much liquid I'm going to thicken to a nappe consistency with 6 ounces of roux? Good. Okay, so so one of the great rules you want to remember as a chef, it'll help you out all the time, but approximately 12 weighted ounces of roux to 1 gallon of liquid is going to get your liquid a nappe consistency on the back of the spoon. So liquid meaning water. If you're working with something like milk or heavy cream, it's going to be a little bit thicker, so you just have to play with that. But baseline water and or stock, you're gonna get a nice nappy on the back of the spoon when you're done with this. And that's what we're looking for, okay? So once this butter is in here and melted down, get that going. Help it along a little bit. We always want to start with the roux first before we heat up the liquid. If we have hot liquid and we put our roux into it, hot or cold, we're going to get what's called roux balls. Okay, and that's little chunks, dumplings, if you will, floating around in your sauce. Those dumplings are not fun to eat. Okay, so we want to make sure we get those out. So the best way to go about doing that is called tempering. Where we take the cold and the hot, we mix it back and forth, and slowly bring the two together, and then go from there. So that's what we're going to do with a roux. We want to make sure we get our roux made first to whatever color or flavor profile we want, and then we're going to add our stock to it slowly, mixing it in, and then we're going to let it cook for just a little bit of time. Okay. So that's all melted. We'll go ahead and we'll take our flour from this first one, put that all in. Now it's starting to bubble over here, so that just kind of looked like it was going to fry a little bit. We want to make sure that it actually doesn't fry, but it's just going to incorporate in there and melt. Okay. Because if we start to fry the flour, that's when you can have it actually separate and weep out of the liquid that you put it in. Okay. So once the flour is in here, we're just going to stir it to combine. Does anyone know the consistency we're looking for a good roux when you're cooking it on the stove?
Peanut butter.
Like what?
Peanut butter.
Peanut butter? Almost. Little looser.
Yeah.
How about something that's outside? Something that I'd like to be at right now. Beach. What's on the beach?
Sand.
Sand. So what kind of sand do we want to see in the bottom of the pot?
Wet sand.
Wet sand, correct. So if you cannot move the roux back and forth from the bottom, okay, it's too tight. You want to make sure that you can move it back and forth with wet sand so that it evenly cooks. If it's too dry, it sits in there, it's chunky, you're going to burn some, you're going to brown some's not going to cook right. So you want to make sure that you always can mix that around so it's nice and smooth. Okay? So as that goes. Okay. Now, if we're just going to treat it like a blonde roux, we just want to cook it for 1 or 2 minutes to take the initial starch out of it and get that starch to activate and actually suspend in the liquid. Once we put the liquid in there, we're going to let it cook a little bit more because we've got to clean up the sauce. But this is where I'm going to deviate. To properly do this, we're going to take our chicken stock and we're going to add it in sessions, like you're making a risotto, probably three additions, if you will. Add the first one in there, mix it up, it's going to tighten right back up again. It's like you didn't add any liquid to it whatsoever. Add a little bit more in there, loosens it up, and then add your final amount. That makes sure that you won't get any roux balls in it when you do this. The water, I'm just going to dump in. And we're going to mix it up and go from there, okay? Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so chicken stock in. This is 2 quarts of chicken stock to 6 weighted ounces. So just a little bit in there. It looks all broken, but we want to incorporate that and let it work just for a moment. Okay, it's going to heat up and come together pretty tight. Okay. Smooth. Let me just go again. We can turn up the heat once we get a good amount of liquid in there and it starts to resemble a sauce in viscosity. We can turn up the heat because we don't have to worry about it burning, and we want it to bring it to a simmer. It's all mixed, so we'll go ahead and add the rest of that liquid in there. Okay. All my liquid's in there. So I'm going to bring this up to a simmer. No seasoning or anything has happened in that. That's just straight chicken stock and roux. And this one over here, this is going to be the water one. We're just going to dump this in. Like you would normally do, probably, right? We're going to give that a stir and be like, ah, that's fine. Good. I'll let that one go too. High heat. Crank that one up to high heat. Okay, so once we have this working, what are we going to do next? It's going to come up to a simmer, then what? Season. Before you even season, what do you want to make sure you do to any sauce or stock?
Salt.
Before you season it. Taste it, but also clean it up. Clean it up. So what we're going to do is skim the stock off of that. And could you snag me a 2-ounce ladle? Skim the stock or skim the scum off of the top that comes up here. You're also going to have a little bit of starch foam that comes out of the roux. That's natural. But we're going to want to clean that sauce up a little bit before we start to taste it and finish it out. So as it comes up to a simmer, that stuff is going to pop up around the edges, and we'll just take the ladle around it and lift it out and put it in a scrap container. Okay, and then we can final season it and so on and so forth from there. Okay? So as this is going, give it a stir every once in a while because we want to make sure the bottom doesn't get stuck. Crank up. To make this process go faster, what could you do?
Cover.
Could cover it. What else could you do?
Turn up the heat.
You could turn up the heat. You can start with warm stock too. Just because I had it cold on the side doesn't mean it couldn't be hot. But the point is adding it in addition so you don't get those roux balls.
If you had warm, do you have to incorporate slowly like you did? It's cold.
It's better always to incorporate slowly so you don't get chunks. Correct. But it would heat up a lot quicker. So, why do we use sauces? To make your food taste better, yeah. No, honestly, that's a good point. What does a sauce normally go with? What type of prepared food are we doing? Proteins. How are we cooking them? Sauteed pan, exactly. Most of your sauces that you're going to make are for sauteed foods, sauteed meats, and they're meant to kind of accentuate the meat, not necessarily hide or camouflage anything, but they're used to complement flavors. The sauce kind of protects the moisture of it and also enhances the flavor, like I said. So sauce is a good complement. It shouldn't disguise anything, but it should raise the bar on pretty much anything that you're producing. Good stuff. Okay, so as this comes up, it's getting there. Getting warm. It's starting to thicken up just a little bit. Now nappe is just going to coat the back of the spoon just like we had cream or milk or something like that. So when we dip it in the sauce and pull it out, we want to pull our finger through it, and it's going to leave a track. If that track closes up or disappears, it's a little bit too light. When you put it on the plate, it's going to spool around. So you want to make sure that it holds the track nicely. Conversely, if you put it on there and you can literally shake it off your finger, that's going to be like a pile of mashed potatoes on your plate. You're going to want to thin that out. Okay. So as it's going, let's troubleshoot the stock. So when this gets done, if it's too thick, what do we do? Oh no, it's concrete. What's going to happen?
Can you add more chicken stock?
We can add more chicken stock. Chicken stock specifically, yes, because that's what I started using in here is chicken stock. So I'd like to add that same flavor back in there. What else? Water. Or you could do a liaison is where I was going. You can finish after you've thickened up your sauce and you're tasting it. You would temper in cold egg yolks or a little bit of heavy cream at the end, and that puts a little sapacity, they call it on your tongue, a little bit of that fat. So if you're lacking some of that richness, that's a good way to do it on top of a roux, is just add a little liaison at the end. And I apologize, this is taking a while now. I'm going to have to do some editing. I'll edit that part out. The one that's not doing so well is doing better. Well, it's just water with this clump. If you go over here and stir it, there's just a clump of roux at the bottom. And the water around it is starting to simmer, but it's not going to do anything really nice. And if I let it sit there and don't tend to it, that roux will actually stick to the bottom and you'll get crusties in your sauce, and then you'll have to strain it out or start over. Not a good thing. Crusties, lumps, roux balls, those are very unattractive terms. Correct.
Roux balls.
Okay, so in the essence of time, I will start to season it right here a little bit. But I will clean it up as well. So absolutely no seasoning in there. This should be pretty flat. It is. So we're going to go ahead and add some salt. And if we have a white sauce, are we going to use white or black pepper?
White.
Can you use black?
For a darker roux.
If you want to. But traditionally correct. White sauces get white pepper. Dark sauces or demi-glaze based sauces, beef-based sauces, you can use black pepper for. But also different flavors. Okay, black pepper is okay if you want to see it, but it's not as spicy or, if you will, as lively as white pepper is. So white pepper's got a little bit more of a front-end kick to it, I think. So I like using white pepper a lot, actually, just on its own, just for that reason. All right. I just have to get in that bag. Okay, that worked perfect. So you can start to see it's coming up the temperature, and there's some bubbles and some things floating around up here. That's some of the impurities within the sauce. We're going to want to pull that off. So what you're going to do is take your ladle and just make a circular motion. That comes to the outside, and you can pull these right off and put them into your waste container. But a lot of people forget to do this, and this was actually my nickname in school, was Depu Josh. Because in stocks and sauces, and this is seriously the truth, in stocks and sauces, our chef had us come in every day, and there was a person, that was that guy, Depu Josh, and your job right at the beginning of class was to skim the stocks. They were all left on overnight. You maintained them so that when the class was ready to go, we could continue on straining or whatever it was going to do. So I got very good at this particular process. But, so off we go. As you can see, some more starting to come up here. It's starting to thicken up. It's got a good color. That's what we're looking for. Now, this one over here, this is this is the one we just did straight water and roux. I'll let that come down here. We didn't do much mixing or anything to it. It looks kind of thick, right? Doesn't look too bad, but if you look in here, there's some roux balls and some chunks and stuff. You know, because we didn't really tend to it that much. We got this foam and stuff on here too. So it's important to not walk away from your sauce while it's doing this, okay? And if you notice over here, this one's starting to come up to a nice little simmer. Okay? Once it starts to do that, we just want to make sure A doesn't overflow, but also, this is a hot ladle now. We're not scorching the sauce, so we'll turn that down a little bit and start to skim this off. Now, when your sauce is done and you're going to see the final viscosity of it, how do you check that? Do you take it right off from when it's